Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Zach with Ronin Imports again to show you guys how to install a Nistune Type 2 board into an R32 ECU, which is R32 GTS-T, using basic soldering tools, which soldering iron, again, nothing fancy, solder sucker, solder, you're gonna need that, and some desoldering wick. One more thing you will need, especially if your ECU is stock, something like isopropyl alcohol, a high content, this is 99%, or something like acetone, because you'll actually have to clean some of the conformal coating out from around the ROM chip. But as you can see, the top of the ECU is obviously pulled off, the knock board's kind of pulled out of the way. You want to be gentle not to damage that ribbon cable. The first step is actually to go through and try to clean the conformal coating off. I actually have a synthetic bristle, paintbrush that I cut the bristles down so that they're a little bit stiffer. Nothing fancy. I'd suggest you use an acid brush, but I actually don't have any left. You can get those pretty cheap, but you can go ahead and spray a little bit of your alcohol or acetone or whatever you've got. And the point of this is to clean the conformal coating off so that we can get a better better connection to the solder with our soldering iron. And you can get in on this side and actually hit it with a little bit as well. You want to get up and around the actual ROM chip. Looks like most of it is off. So actually at this point, we're going to flip the ECU over and we're going to go ahead and start desoldering the ROM chip. You want to make sure that, throughout the process you're actually keeping your soldering iron clean. And most soldering irons, if you buy like a little kit, they'll come with like a sponge or something like steel wool or something that you can actually wipe it on, but in a pinch you can just use like a wet paper towel. It works, but we're gonna go ahead with our solder sucker and start the desoldering process. You can go back with your brush and kind of clean off the area. with alcohol or acetone or whatever it is you have. And of course, if you're using something like this, like an actual brush, not like an acid brush, and if you have acetone, you want to check that the acetone's not going to melt the bristles, because some plastics will actually get really soft and just start melting. And let me see. You want to go back and make sure each one of these pins is actually desoldered. So like I said before, you can use your desoldering wick. And you can see this part of it's already been used. You want to cut that. You just want to use clean desoldering wick, or else you can just make a mess. Again, clean desoldering wick. Alright, so I'm gonna throw my paper towel back down so I can pry against it. And you can see this time, ROM chip popped right out. No issues. Probably can't see in the video. Looks a little blurry because it's not focusing right, but ROM chip popped right out. Clean, no issues. So now you can set that aside, or if you want to keep it, the Nistune boards actually come with this little foam piece that the header is actually pressed into so the pins don't get bent. You can take your ROM chip and stick it on there. Keep that as a souvenir, whatever you want. I've got about 50 of them laying around that I haven't thrown away. Maybe I'll make a project with them. But you can take your brush again, and just clean up the area, because we're going to hit it with our desoldering wick just to clean up the pads. And it looks good. So now at this point, we are going to take the little header that the that the Nistune board presses down into. You can see there's pins. I'm going to go ahead and pull this power wire off. But you can see there's pins. Once the header is installed, the Nistune board slides down into it. It's as simple as that. So we're going to go ahead and press that down into place. You just want to line it up. It should fall into place just like so. And if it falls into place extremely easy like that one, you can take a piece of tape. Doesn't really matter what it is. And just kind of put it in there to hold it in place. And you want to make sure that the header piece is actually flush. If it's crooked, you know, the board will probably still press in, but it's just not ideal. Alright, so you can take your solder, flip this around. You can take your solder, and if the board is loose like this one, you definitely want to hit the corners first so the board doesn't shift. You just want to apply heat for a second or two and let the solder flow over the pins onto the pad. And I'm just cleaning off the tip of my soldering iron right now. Nothing crazy. Alright, now normally I would go through and just complete those soldering joints, but I'm going to pull this tape off. I'm going to take my power wire, which you can see this is actually, it's got one pin that's actually red, that's marked. That's typically the pin that'll go inboard towards the ECU. Obviously you can check the Nistune installation documentation because some ECUs are different, but for the most part, the red pin goes inboard. So, you just want to gently push those into place through the holes in the ECU. And then normally what I do, you can see the cable is actually curled up a little bit. You can take that same piece of tape and tape it so that it is still curled up. And essentially, just the way that it curls, it just makes sure that the wires remain in the hole and poke through properly. So now you can see they're poking through. I'm going to solder those real quick. No problem. Just want to hit it for, again, a second or two and apply your solder. And this is actually 1mm solder. You don't really have to dip this into into the heat very much at all to apply enough solder for these to actually be completely soldered. I would probably suggest, if this is your first time doing it, to use like 0.5mm, which I believe it's actually what the Nistune installation videos recommend. But now that those are soldered in place, we're going to go back and finish soldering in all these points, which again, you just apply heat for a second or two. Nothing to it. Alright, looks good. And at this point, you can double check that none of your solder joints are connected. Again, I believe I mentioned in my last video that these are kind of far enough apart where you don't really have to worry about that. But depending on how sloppy you are with this process, you could have solder jump across and connect at the bottom in between, but these look good. I don't see any problems. Let's flip it over. You can just double check and take a look. Make sure you don't have any problems. But that is pretty much it for a Nistune Type 2 install. At this point, I would normally press the board down into the socket. And then on the Type 2 board, I definitely would recommend putting some hot glue, maybe in this corner, right here, a little bit in this corner. And then sometimes I'll build up a little blob right here, just to connect this side of the board. you know, in a fashion where it won't allow it to move around or vibrate at all. And again, I don't know what you guys are doing with your cars, but if you're drifting or doing any type of, you know, road racing or, you know, whatever it is, you might have a lot of vibration and this could wiggle its way loose. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Board presses into place, connect the power wire, and the last step really is, you can see these components on the knock board. You actually want to fold these down gently. Fold them down and out of the way. I'll usually even come over to these and move these out of the way a little bit. But yeah, fold those down so that you've got the clearance so they don't touch your board. And then once the Nistune board is pressed into place, you can bend this ribbon cable a little bit and kind of curl it up. I don't know if you can see very well, but kind of curl it up a little bit because it's going to try to press against the power wire. But that is it for a Nistune Type 2 install. You know, if you have any questions or, you know, you need any assistance with anything, you can post in the comments or shoot us an email. But I thank you for watching the video. You know, if you like this video, then, you know, of course, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And have a wonderful day. Thank you.